Liberalism versus scientific temporalism. Only time is real. The Church was given a mandate by God to dominate time, to have control over time and the doctrine of dominion. This mandate was expressed also in the Great Commission and alluded to in the two greatest commandments and the Golden Rule. We are required to teach temporality, that is, the absoluteness of time and the authority of the Church over time. But what does this mean in what is considered to be a four-dimensional universe? Obviously, existence has a temporal component. But temporalism as a philosophy is not encapsulated solely by the recognition that the universe has a temporal component. Temporalism is consistent with the doctrine of parsimony. Organizationally, temporalists could bring in the doctrine of subsidiarity and even Occam's razor. But to truly understand the temporalist position, one has to understand what is referred to as the purpose of man, or the thread that ties history together. How do we as sentient beings explain reality and our place in it? In the past, mankind has been governed by the law. The question then becomes how to overcome the law, when the law is regulated by procedures established in law and protected by the law. To escape the law, we have to make the law redundant. The law attempts to regulate behavior by means of rules and by means of those who have the power and duty of enforcing the rules. A priori Futures understands the law as temporally redundant. At best, the law is reactive, responding to acts that contravene the law, but helpless in ensuring the law is not contravened in the first place. Society, like the universe, has only so much energy available to it, that is time. What you call energy, we call time. Time is the constituent element of the universe. The law attempts to attenuate and contain time. Time is the measure of entropy. As energy dissipates, time disappears. The de-energized state is timeless. Clocks measures the rate at which a given supply of energy is consumed. If things remain constant, then we remain frozen in time, there is no progress. If it takes 100 people to produce a widget but techniques are developed to make the same widget with only 10 persons, then we have modernized production. Time has been compacted. Modernization is not about doing what is current, it is doing what reduces the rate of entropy for a given level of production. However, many Christians may think that the Church is immune from this kind of temporal engineering. When we think of a modern church, we think of a building with modern architecture. Possibly, a modern church is considered to be a liberal church, therefore one that has embraced a social agenda. But this is not a modernized church, it is merely a popularized one. Modernity is produced by temporal engineering. We have to do more as a church with the same or less. Conventional churches preach the gospel an hour a week, but faith is put on hold, for the duration. The conventional church does missions and outreach, but these charitable activities are not effective by any measure. They do not save many souls nor solve the problems they are trying to solve. But there is no modernization without scientific quantification. This is something few understand. How can we modernize if we do not know where we are coming from or where we are going? How can we measure progress as time is not quantified, not just measured by means of clocks but quantified in terms of what is occurring during a period of time? For this we need the Church. Time is not imaginary. Nor is time totally subjective. We create clocks to measure time, but the important thing to note is that time is there to be measured. We are not measuring something that does not exist. But to understand time, we have to understand the purpose of time or the role of time. We need to understand good and evil because these words are about the use of time. The idea of good actually quantifies time. If every day was the same as every other day, there would be no good or evil. Good and evil exists because time changes things. Time is not a neutral force. It is easy to understand that if we are good, we use time wisely. But then what is evil that it is about the poor use of time? Let's start by admitting God gave us a season. No one knows how long this season is. The average is set at 70 years and 10, but the actual period we have is unknown. Imagine someone who wastes their life. They are as a clock running down. They do not know they are running down, but they are. One day the spring tension will be insufficient to move the mechanism and the clock will stop. This is inertia. This is running out the energy stored in the spring. But a physical spring can only do so much work, as it is part of the mechanism of the clock. At the same time, a person, even though they are taking in food and water, can only put out so much energy. The person can only do so much work before they also run out of energy and time. If work is geared to replacing the energy expended, the person lives in a subsistence culture. This is how much of the world lived and still lives, even in advanced cultures. Some people do just enough to get by. There is a reason for this: they do not trust anyone, and they do not wish to lose anything to anyone. If they do more than the minimum, they will lose the surplus to others. If they can consume more than they do, they think they have come out ahead. This may be so in one sense, but in the end, everyone is worse off. In subsistence cultures, everyone keeps pace with the natural clock. This could be called a system of natural justice, because everyone is kept at the same economic level, and no one is permitted to rise above his fellow man. Contrasted with this is capitalism or libertarianism. The individual is unleashed in a libertarian culture. Some call the libertarian economy an economy of greed. In it, everyone grabs what they can, when they can, as much and as often as they can. The libertarian economy is a no-holds-barred, free-for-all. We can imagine a motivated person in a subsistence culture finding an ideal supply of flint and devoting his energies into making arrowheads. A small, some might think, insignificant improvement. But what he has done, even by making this small change, is pass through into an entirely different realm, the realm of specialization. The artisan only produces exceptional arrowheads, which his tribe and others pay a premium for. The tribesman turns from craftsman building for his own needs, to an artisan specialized in creating a product with his own hands for trade. Both he and his tribe are better off because of this change. If we introduced machinery and metals so that arrowheads can be mass-produced, we have moved up to an even higher level of specialization and productivity. We have learned to harness time in additional ways. This is the way civilization progresses. Entropy is, in a very real sense, reversed by means of civilization. Time is compacted by the implementation of specialization. This is good. This is what modernization is about. Compare this to what evil does. We demonstrated that modernization means modifying assets to create products. Technology permits us to do this in short time spans. This efficiency is partly due to the efficiency with which technology uses its inputs. Modernization is akin to concentrating time into highly focused packets. The arrowhead becomes a high-powered hunting rifle by the addition of large amounts of technology and machinery. The steps are expanded enormously, but each step becomes equally simplified. All of these investments in time results in an overall savings in time. One man with a gun can more than compensate for all the labor that went into making the gun and bullets. But what if the tribe stole the arrowheads or the gun? For the people who made the arrowheads and gun, the labor is lost. This neutralizing of temporalism is the fruit of liberalism. Liberals look at all the gains made and neutralize them by feeding off of them without benefiting the ones who did the work. We call this parasitism, and it is the downfall of all civilization. The church is a vehicle through which time can be managed. The church is a time management program. We do not think of the church as anything but a club or perhaps as a school for baby Christians, but the church has yet to be ratified and still exists in its primitive form. The church, is like everything else, time-dependent. It can either be modernized or liberalized. As of this writing, the choice appears to be liberalization. Liberals are primitive and they reject standards. Their focus is on freedom, and freedom is ultimately the desire to be outside of time. Liberalism taken to its logical conclusion turns into chaos. We cannot all be free. Someone has to pay the costs and do the work. Specialization and mass production requires a lot of coordination. This does not occur in an environment of freedom. The church ultimately replaces the political, religious, and economic vehicles through which liberalism works. The church, modernized, functions as a one-stop solution to the problems that plague the liberal system. It is, like all civilized solutions, compact and powerful. But it is up to Christians to push through the modifications that will allow it to develop its utmost potential. Scientific temporalism is not just a theory of time and a way to quantify time in terms of progress, it is a program for advancing the church, which is, as of this writing, in a liberal and primitive state. To keep things simple, the church must work in faith to reduce or eliminate parasitism. No one has a right to what you create, nor do you have a right what others create. This is why specialization is so important.